Good evening and welcome to Undoing I Do with Stephanie and Aday. I'm Stephanie Hunnell, the owner of the Hunnell Law Group in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and your co-host for this evening.
And I am Adela Sherilyn Dow, the owner of the law offices of Adela Sherilyn Dow in Staten Island, New York. And I am also your co-host for this evening. How is everyone? Stephanie, how are you?
How are you? I'm great.
That's good to hear. I am on a mini family vacation to the Poconos in the mountains. And if my internet cuts out, blame it on the mountains and not on me.
I'm glad you're away. It's been like a rough year or so, it's a good thing that you're able to get away.
Yeah, I just decided this week is spring break for the kids, and so it was the best time to just take a little hop out of the New York, New Jersey rat race.
And that's the beauty of this, by the way. I mean, the silver lining to COVID is that we get to do all of these things live, but from wherever we're at, which is amazing.
Yep, I had a couple court appearances, even though I'm supposed to be away. Met with some new clients, even though I'm supposed to be away. So yeah, that's the remote world for you.
It is.
I can't say I can't really complain about it though.
I don't actually mind it. I hope we never go back completely to how it was.
I agree with you. Quite frankly, it saves us time, and if it saves us time, then it saves our clients money. Yeah. And I'm all about both of those. Mm-hmm. Not having to wait for 2 hours for your case to be called is amazing. Not having to bill you 2 hours for your case to be called is equally amazing.
Yep, we're on the same page. I know we're going to be talking about trials today. And how many times have you been in a trial or been scheduled for a trial? First of all, you have to prep. Then you go down to the courthouse and you have to sit and wait. And then the judge has a conference or a domestic violence matter that is an urgent thing that got popped up, or bench warrants or something pops up. And you have to sit around and wait, and you're billing the client the entire time. And you might get an hour worth of testimony in before they tell you got to come back in a month.
It's ridiculous. And so let's talk about that, right? Because you just mentioned something called prep. So for everyone watching, we don't just wake up and get ready and we're doing trial. We generally prep along with the litigation. So as the litigation is going on, we're gathering evidence, we're figuring out who your witnesses are going to be, we're subpoenaing documents, so on and so forth, so that once we get to the point of actually doing a trial, we are what we call prepped documentary wise. Then we have to prep you if you're going to be a witness in your own case. We need to know how you're going to testify, how you're going to come off to the court. Do you seem like you're truthful? Do you seem like you're trustworthy? All of these things. And those take several sessions to do.
Yes, they do. I mean, sometimes we can get lucky and we know your demeanor. You're very conversational. We have some clients that are comfortable telling their story. Some people, as soon as they start getting asked questions, become very uncomfortable because that's just the nature of having to testify when you're on the other side of that, it's very uncomfortable. And I would say that it's more uncomfortable probably when you have to sit in a witness chair in live court than when we're on Zooms now, because I think that helps a little bit. At least that has been my experience with the trials I've had since, going remote.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then you talk about levels of discomfort, but then the other thing that we have to realize is that we have some clients who can become defensive because they think that somebody's attacking them. And so we really do need to prep you, especially for cross-examination, when your adversary is not so much trying to get information out of you, but more so trying to push your buttons to see how you're going to misbehave on the stand.
Yep. And all of these sessions take extra time and effort because it's a long process when you're talking about a trial. I would say if you have, I think I want to say 5 to 10 hours per witness is probably what you're spending in preparation before
Right.
you even get to like the actual trial and testimony.
Yeah, I agree with you. And a lot of times I try to tell my clients that you're probably looking at 2 hours of prep for every hour of court time.
Mhm.
So it's very expensive. And so now when we get to this point, and sometimes people say, how the heck did we get here? Like, how did we get to trial? Okay, well, we get to trial when people are unable to come to what we call a meeting of the minds. You're unable to come to an agreement. And so the most frequent question that I get from clients is, well, why can't the judge just decide then? Well, the judge can't just decide because he or she or they, depending upon the type of case that you have, needs evidence put before them that you testify upon, or that's whoever the person who keeps the evidence and documents can testify upon, and they need to be able to ponder that before making a decision. If you have a judge make a decision before all of that is done, they have done a big miscarriage of justice and they have caused what we call a reversible error to occur.
Yep.
And they've just set you up for an appeal, which is
Yep.
even more money.
Yes, it's true. And it's not like you can just present a few pieces of paper and tell the judge the parts that you want to hear. The other side also has the opportunity to come in and say, we disagree with you. We're going to cross-examine you. And here's the proofs that we have that prove or that disprove whatever it is that you're saying. And the judge has to look at both sides of that and, yes, ponder it before the judge makes a decision. I do have, first of all, I want to backtrack a little bit because we were originally talking about how we get to this point. You mentioned that, and that's what we were talking about in the on the Facebook. So you get to this point because you said people can't settle their cases. Majority of the times, cases settle in divorce, and at least some of the issues do settle. The court can come in and have a settlement conference and say, what issues are you sticking on? And then the court can weigh in a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit to kind of see if in general, this is where I might go in this kind of a scenario. But they cannot
Right.
prejudge your case, because if they start making decisions and say, this is what we're going to do, then they're prejudging your case. And yes, they do open you up for appeal. Happy holiday.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy holidays, Nicole. Thank you so much. Happy holidays to you and your beautiful family. We appreciate it. So yeah, and this is why this process is so frustrating to some people, because the thought process is, here's the evidence. Like, how can anybody not understand that this is accurate? Why are we doing this? Why this person knows, or their attorney knows, but the judge actually doesn't know.
Right.
And in doing all of this back and forth, and let's hear what he has to say, let's hear what the defendant has to say, let's hear what the plaintiff has to say, let's hear what the other witnesses has to say, they're trying to make sure that they figure out which part of the story is the actual truth, right? You always heard that there's 3 sides to every story, right? And so a judge doesn't want to be in a situation where you're going to appeal them, and they really would set themselves up for that. So what do you do when you can't afford all of this back and forth? Well, my opinion is that you needed to be setting your case up along with your attorney from jump to try to make sure that you hedge off any potential for actually going to trial in your matter. How do you do that? Well, there's many different ways. First of all, you got to hire the right attorney. You got to hire the right attorney, because there are some attorneys out there who would love to set your case up for trial. Love to set your case up for trial, so that you can spend your money that you should be giving to your kids.
I have to tell you, so, I mean, we talked about this many times about people that don't always practice family law, and then they jump in and they do a little bit of family law practice and they end up doing their clients a disservice. We say that because there's strategies, and family law is very complex. I used to not think that when I was not a family law attorney. I just kind of, probably like a lot of people, thought, oh, family law attorney, that's just like, child support, divorce, it's not a big deal. But
Right.
it can be very complex. There's so many different issues. And if you don't have the right attorney that can guide you and give you realistic expectations throughout the entire case, that's how you get set up for a trial. Because you have some attorneys, and I can think of a couple in particular right now, that kind of do none of the work throughout the entire litigation. And then they just, kind of go with this is one event, then this is the next event, and they don't really know the facts and figures that you can talk about, credit card debt and equitable distribution and this, and they don't actually know the numbers as we're going into it. Then their client never really has a realistic expectation of how things are going to go when it gets to trial. So then when you get up to that point, it's very difficult to settle the case.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And so if you, first of all, you need to really know what your legal rights and obligations are. When you are clear as to what your legal rights and obligations are, and you present them in a way that is understandable to the court, you start to sway, right, that pendulum into your
Mm-hmm.
direction. And
Mm-hmm.
judges then start making comments. Now, they cannot prejudge your case, okay, because again, that sets them up for an appeal. But they will start making comments that will swing that pendulum, and the other side should start seeing, oh snap, this whatever they're selling this judge is starting to work. Maybe I
Right.
need to reassess my plan. Maybe I need to settle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think that people don't do early enough is when you're dealing with issues of equitable distribution, and it has to do with a business or real estate, they don't get experts involved early enough. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why is because clients want to avoid the expense of paying for the experts. But let me just tell you that the expense of paying for a simple expert report as to what somebody earns, whether they think they're hiding money, is so much less than going to trial and spending hundreds of dollars an hour for multiple days on
Yep.
an attorney plus the prep work.
Correct. Yep. And I would call that the penny wise, pound foolish, because you end up
Absolutely.
spending more time trying to figure these numbers out. And I know a lot of people. So, for example, like you can go online and you can look up a house in Zillow or realtor.com or something, and you can get some ideas. We have no idea if those numbers are accurate, not accurate. They fluctuate by the day. And if you just go and spend the $500-600, depending on what area you're at, they might up north, they might be like $750. Get an appraisal, then you don't have to do any guesswork. You have fewer negotiations because you don't have to say, well, I saw Zillow said my house was $350, and then this one said it was $400, and then you're going back and forth and trying to figure out what the correct number is. Get the report. You know what the number is, and that's one issue that you can check off the list and save yourself money, so you don't have to take that issue to trial.
Absolutely. And the other thing about that you want to focus on is getting your financial documents. Listen, I tell most people before you even go to the lawyer's office, have your junk together when it comes to your
Mhm.
finances. Look, if they left their tax returns, click, click, take a copy of the
Mhm.
tax returns, get the W-2s, get the bank statements, make sure that you have downloaded this stuff, have access to it, because you don't want to waste your time trying to issue subpoenas to Tom, Dick, and Harry, and their brothers too, trying to
Right.
find this information. You are going to waste money, and the more efficient you are, and the quicker you are at getting that, the more time your attorney has to keep you out of a trial
Right.
because they have the information to confront the adversary with.
Correct. Yep. When you're looking at actual documents and you say this is what it is, then you cut off any argument. So I have a case going on currently. I'm actually going to be, we'll see if I have to prepare for a trial next week or not, but it's very close to that. And there's some issues where we can't come up with a resolution because we don't know the answer to a question that is easily discoverable if the other side would just provide us with a copy of a canceled check or a copy of a closing document. Rather than do that, we've been going back and forth, and I have to tell you, we've probably wasted a couple of hours during the different mediation sessions because we can't come to like a solid number on that topic. And it's such
And
an
so,
easy thing to do. And it's just
yeah,
to be
and so the
difficult.
couple, yeah, it's just to be difficult. So now here we go. This
Mhm.
again leads into who you're selecting as an attorney. Don't prolong stuff by trying to one up and be difficult. You are going to end up in front of a judge who's going to say, call your first witness. We're not giving you any more time. Call your first witness. And so, you may say, well, it's the principle of the matter. I don't want to give this. They should already have it. Oh, they don't have it. Sucks for them. No, it's going to suck for you because you're going to be the one paying your counsel fees. Oh, and by the way, it's not only about paying the attorneys. We have to also pay for transcripts at the end of every trial because the judge might take notes, but he or she may not be taking notes copiously. And so therefore there may be gaps in their notes. What are they going to do? They're going to say, oh, in New York, we still have stenographers. So they're going to say, or court reporters, my bad to any court reporters who are watching. I did not mean to call you stenographers. It is a senior moment. So don't hold it against me.
We're just aging ourselves because I didn't even
We
catch
are
it when
aging ourselves. We've just been in this for long times. So, but those court reporters, they are not cheap. Okay,
no.
they are sitting there for hours typing, and they are going to charge you anywhere between $3 and $5 a page. At the end of the day, I have spent $1,000 and more on one day of transcripts. And yes, I need those transcripts. And yes, I'm going to be asking you to pay for them.
Yep.
Don't get into the situation. Look, here's the thing. I know we're scaring some people, but the bottom line is that the majority of cases don't go to trial. But the ones that do go to trial they're financially traumatic.
Yeah. So not to scare anybody, but you're right. I think this deserves a little bit of scaring because if your case can settle and if there are issues that should resolve themselves, and there's some issues that can't resolve themselves because there can be completely different, custody and parenting time can be one of those issues because there's no right answer necessarily. So there's a lot of issues that can't be settled, but majority of divorce issues can be settled. And I forget my thought, what I was going to say.
You said not to scare anybody.
Oh, yes. But when we're talking about a trial, we're generally talking about, $15,000 in a retainer for a trial. I mean, depending on how many days, it could be more. It really depends. I had a 13-day trial. Years and years back. It was insanity. That was $90,000. Crazy.
Please save your money. Save your money, people. Look, come on. You have, if you're on this channel, you've probably watched us for a good deal of time. And if that's the case, you've probably realized that we are not those lawyers who are out there trying to just knock you over the head for every single buck that you have. If you come into either one of our offices, we are looking to resolve. We're not looking to give away the cow, the house, the kids, and all of that. We are looking to make sure that we resolve your case. And only if we cannot, because we've tried everything, do we head your case to trial. And best believe that when we head your case to trial, we are coming to win. We're not coming to play games. Okay. Nope. And so since we're not coming to play games, we're putting on our A game, and that is going to cost you a ridiculous amount of money. And we want to serve you properly, but we don't want you to have to go there if you don't have to, quite frankly. Right. Sometimes it's just not worth it. And sometimes when you get into a trial, you end up with a judge who, okay, no disrespect to any judges who are watching, because I know that all the judges who are watching are on their stuff. But you may end up with a judge who just isn't that savvy about a particular issue. Maybe they don't quite understand how business valuations work. Maybe they don't quite understand the implication of the taxes in your business or the insurances and this, that, and the other. And maybe they will make a decision that is not in your favor. Take it out of their hands. And if you have an attorney who you think, wait, what is their purpose in sending this thing to trial? I said I agreed with blah, 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 blah. Fire them. Yes, I said it. I said it. Fire them today.
Yep. There's absolutely
don't take that nonsense because you're going along for a ride.
No. Yeah, and don't try your case just because you have a principal either.
No, because you're going to lose your shirt over the principal. Look, if your lawyer told you that the law is not on your side, do a little bit of research. Don't confuse your Google research for my law degree or Steph's law degree or your lawyer's law degree, but do a little research and just see whether your thought process on this is accurate. And if it's not, then you have to figure out, okay, what's a return on investment for doing this? I ask that of all of my clients. Look, I know you want to do X, Y, Z, but what is the return on investment?
Right. You have to ask that question. And I don't, I mean, a lot of the attorneys that you and I both know, we're in a lot of the same groups and stuff, and I think they practice very similarly. But there's a lot of attorneys out there that don't have that in mind. They kind of are just going through the next event and the next cycle and here's another bill, and you have to pay this and you have to do this. But they're not really keeping an eye on the overall. We just spent $10,000 on arguing over your $5,000 401k. Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? I wouldn't recommend just saying, okay, you're just going to get rid of it. We're not going to go after the 401k. But when you have to make a decision, and if that's a sticking issue, maybe you're going to get something else. Let the person keep the 401k, and then you get to keep the car and not have to contribute to the car. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but you have to keep your eye on the ball. Is what you're investing in your divorce worth what you're going to get at the end of the day?
And so, when you talk about assets like that, the one thing that I always think about when we talk about, we're going to trial, I want to get the house. This person can't have my pension. Okay, that's not a thing. Usually if people, well, my cousin Sally, she got her house. No, your cousin Sally didn't. Most likely, I don't know Sally, but most likely your cousin Sally didn't just get the house. Like her husband John probably didn't just give her the house. She probably had a trade-off for something. So now realize that nobody tells you the truth about the nitty-gritties of their divorce and the nitty-gritties of their marriage. Most people don't. Okay. And so you're not going to go to trial. You have to think, am I going to really go to trial over this, or am I going to settle something for another? Right. And how am I going to do that? If you have a child at home and your youngest child is 19 years old, do not go to trial over whether the house is going to get sold, because unless you can come up with the money, the house is going to get sold because your child is over the age of 18 and the court no longer has the jurisdiction to say, oh, well, Johnny has to stay there, so we're not going to sell. These are things that you don't want to go to trial over because you're going to be disappointed and out your money.
Right. And out your money. And what do you do if you can't afford a trial? So now you're at the end, you've had a year, 2 years of litigation, you've gone through everything. You might be the most reasonable person in the world, but your spouse, soon to be ex-spouse, is not reasonable, and you have no choice, but you're going to go to trial. What do you do then?
So here's the thing. If you have an attorney who requires a trial retainer and you didn't pay the trial retainer, they might be moving to be relieved from your case for non-payment. What happens then? If the judge grants that, and there's many judges who do, you are going to be forced to do your trial on your own. That is a scary proposition for most people. Steph and I do this every day, and we still get a little jitters when we go into the courtroom. So imagine if you don't know what you're doing. And this is not court TV. This is not Judge Judy. It is not going to be wrapped up in a half an hour. And you can make fatal errors in your case. So if you get to the point where you realize, I mean, come on, we see the smoke on the horizon. We know that the case is getting ready to go to trial in XYZ months, and we know we don't have the money. That's the time to cut bait on whatever it is that you're doing in a way that still allows you to maintain what your rights are in your divorce. There may be other options for you to get financing. Maybe you want to see whether you can refinance your home. Maybe you want to see whether you can take personal loans. But most people by this point, if they can't afford the trial, it's because they've exhausted all of those things. They've exhausted the PayPals. PayPal, please don't sue me. It's just an example. They've exhausted the credit cards. They can no longer phone home to ET or their mom and get some money.
Right. Yeah,
And
I mean,
these judges will force you to go to trial.
And look, if you're set for trial, the court is saying you're set up. If we let your attorney out of the case, it doesn't really matter. You have to represent yourself and you have to try your own case. I would say if you're the unreasonable person and you were moving to trial because you are, as a matter of principle, what I would say to you is that you have to really have a come to Jesus moment with yourself and say, if I have to come up with $10,000 for a trial, am I going to now make a decision about giving up some issue maybe that I didn't necessarily want to give up in order to resolve the case? So that's something to consider as well, if you're the person that's unreasonable. And I do think most attorneys are going to try to resolve your case, even if it's at the 11th hour and we're wheeling and dealing and trying to do what we need to do. And we want to come up with creative solutions to get your case resolved, or at least get as many issues that we can resolved. It's very frustrating when some attorneys allow their clients to pit unrelated issues against each other. So I know some issues are very interrelated and we have to figure out what kind of money we're going to impute you if the issue is child support. So those are intertwined. But if we're looking at equitable distribution and child support, just for example, those are not intertwined. So if we have a resolution to one, you're really, as an attorney, if your attorney is doing this to you, they're doing you a disservice, that letting you pit those two against each other. Because rather than have a trial on one or two small issues, if you're going to have a full-blown divorce trial on every single issue, you need to fire that attorney. That attorney's not doing a good job.
That's correct. And look, you can feel it. Go with your gut. Don't stick within a.
I think you froze. So yeah, you have to go with your gut. If you feel like that attorney is taking some advantage of you, or they're not listening to what you're saying, or they're forcing you into a corner where you feel like, go ahead.
Did you hear me?
No, I didn't. I was just filling in because you froze, so I was trying to pick up on your point.
Oh. That's the Poconos. I told y'all that was going to happen.
I know. We got through most of it, so we're like at 28 minutes, so that's pretty good.
That is pretty good. That is really good, actually. But yeah, what I was saying was that if you in your gut don't think that your attorney is doing your service, you need to listen to your gut. Your gut most likely has never failed you. You need to listen to it, and you need to make a pivot early as possible. Don't get down to the road of almost having a trial and being in that situation.
And you really have to be open and honest with yourself through the process, because as you're going through the process, look, I've had to check myself sometimes where I, not necessarily substituting my opinion for the client's opinion, but where I feel very strongly about an issue and I might be pushing it in one direction. And I've had to step back and say, look, this is what I think. This is what's, in the realm of being fair. But what do you think? Like, what are you comfortable with? Because that's really what counts. That's what 100% what matters. After the divorce is finalized, I'm going to go on to the next case or my own family. And you're the one that has to live with whatever decision that you settle for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my final thing for the night before we wrap up, even though we're telling you to avoid trial if you can, I'm also going to tell you, and I think that Stephanie will agree, don't settle for something that you can't do. Do not settle for something that you don't have peace with. It might not. You might say, "Oh man, that's not really the fairest," but you could still have peace with it. Fine. But if this thing that you're settling upon is gnawing at you, don't do it. I'd rather actually have you go to trial on your own than have you settle for something that's really not going to be in your best interest at all.
Yep. I agree with you. And I have to say, I wanted to leave with one final point as well. When you see that your attorney is doing all of this work in advance of the trial, and you think, well, trial was very simple. We just read through these questions. That's because all of that work happened well in advance, like hours. We try to make it seem like we're spontaneously coming up with this amazing cross-examination question, when in reality it's like written, and we led the person into making the answer that we wanted, so we can like say, by the way, here's this. So I, keep that in mind. It's really not like you see on TV where you can just go through an hour. It's expensive and it's time consuming. I mean, I really love trials, but
So do I.
I do. I really do.
Because we just like to show off, we just want to.
And by the way, once I personally get to that point, I am like all in. I'm not, there's not, I'm not going to just maybe this or maybe that, because I have a settlement mentality before the trial. But once I'm at trial, I'm out for blood.
We coming for you. Once we're at trial, woo, boy, you better cannot be held back. I just told a client that today. I'm like, you better prepare your wife, because once it goes down, it's going down. We not backtracking at that point.
Nope.
Thank you so much for watching Undoing I Do with Stephanie and Ade. If you like what we bring to you each and every week, Thursday at 6 p.m. on our Facebook page, please share, please like our page, please let your friends and family know that we're here and we're supporting you, and we're here to give you the knowledge that you need in order to secure your Undoing I Do.
Yes, and please pop over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe to our channel, absolutely. Thanks for watching. Night. Good night. Oh, and happy Easter and happy Passover.
Happy Easter and